Hi, this is Jennifer from Read It Again. Come join me while I read the second part of The Octopus from the Lighthouse Family series by Cynthia Rylant and illustrated by Preston McDaniels. Please consider subscribing, and if you enjoyed this book, hit the like button and share this video with all your friends. Chapter 3, The Octopus. When the children reached the shore, they were delighted to see how far away the water lay and how much more beach there was to explore. "It feels as if we have a whole new island," said Lila as they walked out upon the hard, wet sand. Whistler stepped gingerly around a small starfish. "Quiet and friendly," he reminded Lila. "Quiet and friendly." Lila pointed far out to the edge of the estuary where the ocean gently lapped as it pulled itself away. "We've never been all the way out there," she said. "Let's go," said Whistler. The children ventured farther and farther out over the estuary. As they walked, sea squirts shot water up all around them, and crabs scuttled, and starfish watched. "The mud is getting softer," said Lila, lifting her foot. "It hasn't dried in the sun yet," said Whistler. Whistler and Lila stopped to look into the little pools of dark water the tide had left behind. "Goodness," said Lila, gazing at a giant green anemone. "I've never met one of these." "And I've never met one of these," said Whistler, pointing to an orange sea cucumber. Someone tapped Whistler on the leg. "Have you ever met one of me?" a voice asked. "Ah!" Whistler jumped in surprise. "Who said that?" He and Lila peered behind them into a small, dark pool of water. "I think I see a pair of eyes," said Lila, "or maybe doorknobs." "Where?" asked Whistler, bending closer to the water. A small tentacle reached up from the pool and tapped him on the nose. "Ah!" Whistler jumped again. "Hey," said Lila, "it's an octopus." They watched as two large yellow eyes, which did indeed look like doorknobs, rose to the water's surface. The yellow eyes belonged to a small, baggy body that supported 8 long tentacles. One of the tentacles waved hello. "My name is Cleo," said the octopus. "I'm sorry I made you jump." "Oh, that's all right," said Whistler. "That was a good trick. I'm Whistler, and this is my sister Lila." "Pleased to meet you," said Lila. Stepping near the octopus, as she drew closer, something amazing happened. "You changed," said Lila. "Now you have stripes." "Oops," said Cleo. "They're your stripes," he said, pointing to Lila's slicker. "Sometimes I blend without thinking." "Amazing," said Whistler. "Well, I'm still practicing on stripes," said Cleo, "but I do reds and greens quite well." "May we see?" asked Lila. "Do you have something red with you?" asked Cleo. Lila and Whistler looked at each other. "Apples," said Whistler. He pulled an apple from the twine bag and held it out to Cleo. The octopus turned a wonderful red. "Oh my goodness," said Lila. Cleo assumed his original brown shade. "I like colors," he said, "but I'm too shy to be flashy." "I never thought we would meet an octopus in the estuary," said Whistler. "Yes," said Lila, "usually there are only creatures who squirt or stare." "I made a mistake," said Cleo. "That's why I'm here in this little pool." "A mistake?" asked Lila. "The tide pulled away so quickly," said the octopus. "I was resting in this hole, and when I popped my head up, the ocean had left me behind." "Oh dear," said Lila. "Don't worry," Whistler told the octopus. "The tide will come back and carry you out to sea again." "Shall we keep you company until it does?" asked Lila. "Would you?" asked Cleo. "It's a bit boring just sitting here. I don't know how the starfish do it." "They solve problems," said Whistler. "Pardon me?" asked Cleo. I once asked a starfish what he does all day, explained Whistler, and he said, I solve problems. Oh, said Cleo, what sort of problems? Well, said Whistler, he said to me, today it's a mouse problem. Oh, the octopus thought a moment. I'm not sure, Cleo said, but I think perhaps he was being rude. I think so too, said Lila. Whistler agreed, and he pulled open his twine bag. Have you ever had a gooseberry biscuit? He asked Cleo. Whistler broke a biscuit into 4 pieces and placed each piece on one of Cleo's tentacles. Pop, 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 pop! The little octopus popped each piece into his mouth. He smiled. Thank you. Lila looked out toward the water. Whistler, she said, I think the tide has started coming in. Whistler looked at the line of water now slowly lapping its way to shore. Oops, he said, we better go, Cleo. Will you swim over to the lighthouse to visit us sometime? I'd love to, said Cleo. We'd better hurry, said Lila. The tide seems to be edging in fast. She picked up her bag and tried to take a step. I'm stuck, she said. I can't move my feet. Whistler knelt down and tried to lift Lila's foot out of the mud. Your foot won't budge, he said. Pull hard. Lila tried with all her strength to move her feet. I'm stuck, she said, and the tide is coming in. I'm strong, said Cleo. Maybe I can lift you out. He wrapped a tentacle around Lila's waist and pulled. It isn't working, said Lila. The mud has hardened all around me and it won't let me go. We have to soften it up, said Whistler. We have to get it all wet again. Hurry, said Lila. Think of something. I have, said Cleo, and he turned his body until a funnel-shaped part of it was pointing at Lila. Hold on, said Cleo. He sucked water into the funnel, then shot it out in a strong spray all over Lila. Great, said Whistler. Keep going. Cleo sprayed and sprayed until Lila and all the mud surrounding her was soaking wet. Lila lifted one foot out of the mud. Thook! Then another. She gave a deep, drippy sigh of relief. Thank you, Cleo, she said. Thank you. Whistler grabbed Lila's hand to run back to shore. Come visit us, Cleo, Whistler called as they ran. Tomorrow afternoon. And the 2 mouse children ran quickly to safety, away from the water, which the little octopus couldn't wait to swim in again. Chapter 4, Home. Whistler and Lila arrived home with 4 muddy feet, no sugar kelp, and some sneezes, Lila's. Pandora met them at the door and knew right away that their morning had been an eventful one. Another adventure, Siebold would have said, had he not been up in the lantern room with Tiny. Pandora brought the children in and sat them down by the stove, and then she put their feet in pans of nice warm water and draped warm woolen cloths over their heads. But my head isn't wet, said Whistler. Only Lila got sprayed. Every head wants to be warmed, said Pandora, bringing a pot of tea to the table. And how did you come to be sprayed, Lila dear? It was an octopus, said Lila. Pandora set down the teapot. She looked calmly at the children. I think Siebold might like to hear this story, she said, and she called him down from the lantern room. When Siebold came down with Tiny on his shoulder, everyone gathered for tea while the children explained how they came to meet an octopus and how the octopus had saved Lila. Astounding, said Siebold, and very good thinking for a baby. A baby? Asked Whistler. Yes, of course, said Siebold. Any octopus found in a tidal pool so small would be a child. You mean Cleo will grow bigger? Asked Lila. Oh, much bigger, said Siebold. We should thank the child in some way, said Pandora. Yes, said Lila, he's a hero for saving me. I invited him to visit us tomorrow afternoon, said Whistler. Perfect, said Pandora. I'll make a nice big lunch." "He likes gooseberry biscuits," interrupted Whistler. Which will include gooseberry biscuits," finished Pandora with a smile. After tea, Pandora sent the children to nap away their exciting morning, first settling them into their sock bed, then tying a flannel scarf about Lila's head. "I'm sorry I got stuck and forgot to bring home the sugar kelp," Lila whispered softly. Pandora purred and patted her lovingly. "You brought me home, you," said Pandora. "That is all this family ever asks, dear." Lila smiled and went instantly to sleep. Chapter 5, A Family. The next afternoon it was quite thrilling when Siebold spotted not one, but 3 octopi from the window of the lantern room. "The octopi have arrived," he called down the stairs to the children who were helping Pandora in the kitchen. "Octopi?" repeated Whistler. As Pandora finished preparing a picnic lunch, Whistler and Lila ran down to the shore. There they found Cleo swimming in the waves, and they knew right away he was indeed a child, for the tentacled creatures with him were much larger than he. "I brought my parents," Cleo called. The 3 octopi came closer to shore as close to shore as they could, and Whistler and Lila were delighted to be introduced to Cleo's parents, Hancock and Florence. Florence stayed hidden in the water mostly. Only her eyes broke the surface. "My mother is shy," said Cleo. "We're all shy, but I really wanted my parents to meet you." Lila put on her best, most inviting smile and welcomed them. "We are so very happy to have you here," she told Hancock and Florence. "Your son is a hero." Upon hearing those words, all 3 octopi turned red. "Oops," said Lila. "We're just proud, little mouse," said Hancock. "We're just proud of our boy." "They turned red because I did," said Cleo. "You know how we blend." "We hope you'll meet us in the sea cave over there for lunch," said Whistler. "Will you?" Florence popped up her head. "We'd be pleased to," she said. Then she popped it back down. "Wonderful," said Lila. And before long, the Lighthouse family and the Octopus family were all gathered in the sea cave enjoying lunch and each other. Pandora had prepared a wonderful meal of fluffy gooseberry biscuits, a salad of chickweed, mushrooms, and apples, and for dessert, rhubarb pot pies. "I shall never enjoy kelp again," said Hancock, as he filled his mouth with another piece of pie. Cleo's mother, Florence, had brought a pearl bracelet for Pandora, a gift for their hostess. "The pearls came from our shipwreck," explained Cleo. "Your shipwreck?" asked Whistler. "We live in a shipwreck," said Cleo. "Didn't I mention that?" "Fantastic," said Whistler. And so the new friends lingered in the sea cave all afternoon. Siebold and Hancock traded stories about the grumpiest fish they'd met. Siebold, a blowfish. Hancock, a squid. Florence told Pandora about the healing properties of sea carrots, while Tiny ran up and down all of Cleo's tentacles, and Whistler and Lila gathered pale violet daisies from the cave's entrance, bringing everyone a small, fragrant bouquet. Everything was good this day. It always was good to make new friends.